Welcome to the Black Doctor Collective podcast. We as Black doctors are in a unique position. We can change our communities, healthcare, and the world. Of course, we start by changing the way we see and value ourselves. I'm your host, Dr. Shanika Horn, pediatrician and physician coach, travel extraordinaire. I am so happy to have you here and listening. So let's get into it. Hey y'all, can you believe it's March? Like, where does the year go? I feel like March can be a hit or miss month because March in New York, they say it comes in like a lion and goes out like a lamb, and they are not playing. It will be 60 degrees one day and 30 the next. No idea what's going on. But March is also the time when the days are getting longer and you start to see some little glimpses of springtime. So I hope you're feeling hopeful and optimistic in spite of all of the mayhem and misinformation that's happening in the world and the measles. Are there any other M things that are, Musk. There's so many bad M things that are happening. Mayhem, Musk, measles. Anyway, I am excited about this month. And this episode, I want to talk to you about fear and how you have to examine your fear in order to take the first step, and how fear is not an indicator of readiness. So that's what we're going to talk about today. I know in last episode, we were talking about how to ask for things, how to get what you want, take an actionable step. So I hope that you went and did that. I hope that you examined, who are you to ask? And that you were able to determine that you are a bad beep and able to ask for what you want. And I hope that you ask for a bunch of small things, and I hope you ask for a bunch of big things. So anyway, let's get into this episode. I was thinking about a story, because y'all know I love to tell a good story, child, but about when I had a moment of fear that I overcame, because I thought that would be such a good example for this episode. And the thing is, after you do the thing, something in your brain like switches, where all of a sudden, all of the apprehension and the angst that you had somehow dissipates. And it's almost like I forget that I was afraid, right? So I recently had a negotiation process in becoming the medical director. And I am a 1099, I'm an hourly employee, so I had to renegotiate a rate of pay. Now, I had never been a medical director before. It's my first time. I actually that wasn't even my intention when we decided to re-examine my relationship with this clinic and come up with a different solution. It wasn't like, oh, you know what? Yes, I'm going to be medical director. I had no inclination of that whatsoever. But based on what they were asking me to do, I ended up backing into that position, in that I looked at all of the things that they wanted me to do, the roles and responsibilities. And when I searched for who does that, what came up was medical director. So I was like, okay, this is an appropriate title for the type of work that they're asking me to undertake. So then, of course, now comes the next thing. It's like, well, what am I going to ask for? That's what everybody asks. Like, where do I even start with what I'm going to ask for? I love this question. It's an amazing question, and it's very multifaceted. It's not as simple as you think. No one can just give you an answer, right? Because it really takes into account so many facets of the job, what you desire, what's valuable to you. It's a lot about checks and balances to come up with a rate that's going to be satisfying and also that takes care of you, there's so many steps to it. But I have to say, I'm a testimonial to my own process. Can I tell you how your girl used her framework for calculating a good salary and then used her other negotiation framework to stand 10 toes down in asking for it, and then renegotiating the terms Like, I had to lean on my process so hard in this negotiation because I too have all of the feelings that you guys have when it's time to negotiate. I look confident, but confidence comes in the after fact, to be honest. Because right now, in reflection, I'm like, yeah, I did that. Yeah, I did. But in the moment, ooh, no, I had all the palpitations. Okay. I mean, the same fears pop up, right? I didn't want to seem ungrateful, which was such a weird thing because I was totally 100% ready to walk away and move on to a different experience. Like, I had no actual drama, which usually adds another layer, like the mind drama around, like, I need this thing to work. I didn't have that. And yet, and still, all the other emotions were still present. I still wanted to people please. I still wanted to come across as reasonable. I still wanted to minimize my ask and come up with something that I thought that they would agree to right away because I didn't want the discomfort of going back and forth. There's just so much, like, I can feel it in my belly now, just swirling, just thinking about the conversations, right? Like, oh, I still have all of the feelings, but I also, thank God, have a process. And part of that process is understanding what I want, what I should ask for, how much to ask for, and building a safety within that. Because really, what it comes down to is it feels so unsafe to ask these things. It feels like I have to question my own sufficiency. Like, am I enough? If you listen to last week's episode, it was like, who am I to ask for these things? I had to go through all of those in order to make this ask successful. So, thank God for this Any Day Negotiator program, because every time I had a fear and every time I had what felt like could be a barrier, I just really leaned into the process and I was able to move through it. So I ended up almost doubling my current rate of pay, which in my wildest dreams sounds crazy, but literally that's what I've been able to do. And I'm doing it hourly, which also feels amazing because now I feel like the work I do is valued because I'm getting paid for it. Like, I'm not doing a bunch of work that I don't get paid for, which is what happens when you take a lot of these roles, is that sometimes you don't understand the full scope of it. And you don't understand everything that's going to come up and everything you're going to be asked to do. And I have a sense of wanting to see things to completion, and I want to do things to my standard, and my standard is high, y'all. So the fact that I know I'm going in to produce this certain standard of care or this certain, standard of work, and that I'm not just going to leave things unfinished because I'm only getting paid for 20 hours or 30 hours or whatever, that I'm going to do what it takes to fill the job and do it to the best of my capability. I think for me, that made sense to be paid hourly. And talk about, like, are there limitations to how many hours I work and all of that? And those conversations can get so uncomfortable, but I got to process. Oh, the process was so good. Okay. So I want you to ask yourself, what is something that you have been afraid to do? It could be in medicine, it could be outside of medicine. For me, it was ask for this very elevated hourly rate. And it really wasn't elevated when I broke down salary, right? Like, it's still reasonable. I hate that word. Oh, I don't want to use that word because I don't want us to convince ourselves about reasonability. I actually found what I thought was a reasonable rate and I asked for a little bit more and I got the more. And I thought, damn, if I hadn't talked myself out of asking for the reasonable thing, I would have been making a good amount, like $25 an hour less than what I ended up asking for. Imagine on the hour. Woo. So I want you to think about something that you've been afraid to do. And by the end of this episode, I want us to have that first step. Okay. In order to do this, you have to think about what belief is holding you back here. So this concept of I need to feel ready before I take action. Ooh, tell me if that don't resonate. I need to feel ready before I take action. Y'all, Doctors love what I call a research phase. You guys, like it's not me, it's me. I will sit at the computer and research every aspect of every facet of everything that I think I need to know in order to feel qualified to do the thing. And we get that from medical school, right? Like we train for 2 years of just core sciences, followed by 2 more years of clinical experience just to be able to do what we are able to do. But we cannot do that process with everything. It is time consuming. It is a high threshold for entry. Most of our decisions do not require that. This reminds me of an episode I did, God, it must have been last year, where I talked about this decision making process and things that require a quick decision versus things that you really have to measure out. And we spend a lot more time measuring out things that really should be quick decisions. Right. And I need to do another episode on that. That's been a while. That is a concept that I need to revisit even for myself. But this idea of I need to feel ready before I take the action will have us researching, asking everybody, reaching out to everyone we know, our sisters, mamas, cousins, brother, for advice, telling us what to do, what's their experience, got us in the Facebook group, writing anonymous comments. Tell me that's not you. Writing these anonymous comments, questions, hoping that people will tell us the way to go because we need to feel ready before we take the action. And the thing is, we don't actually, because counter to that, in the same medical experience, we had to do things before we felt ready. Can you remember the first time you went into clinicals? I did not know what was going on. I remember walking into those hospitals with my little short white coat on, and I did not know how to treat a patient. Even the day I graduated medical school, which was like not too long before we had to then march into our long white coat and hop into residency. My first day of residency as an intern, I did not know anything. I did not feel ready, but I had to take action. I had to go in those rooms. I had to take histories. I had to admit patients. I was on an inpatient rotation to start. I had to do the action, right? And that was what was expected of me. And I did it, even though it felt like I was leaping off a bridge. I don't want you to feel like you're leaping off a bridge every time you make a decision. I'm just using that as a point of comparison. But we have to take action before we are ready. Okay. Another belief is I'm scared and it must mean I'm not prepared enough. I literally had this conversation today with a friend of mine, like about something I'm trying to do. And I'm like, if it's this hard, is that a sign that I shouldn't do it? Because shouldn't it be easy? I want rainbows and butterflies. That's something my coach says all the time. Everything can't be rainbows and butterflies. But I'm like, but can it though? Can't it? I would prefer it if it was. I want rainbows and butterflies. I want ease. And I take ease, and a lot of us take ease as a sign that means that things should go forward. And we take resistance as a sign that we should not proceed. Fear sometimes feels like a stop sign when actually it's a green light. It's just a signal for growth. Being scared has nothing to do with being prepared. You could do all the preparation in the world, and that fear will sit right there like a rock hard Popeye's biscuit in the bottom of your belly. They don't correlate. And so you have to be aware of it, and then you have to remind yourself that this is not a true sign that I should not be doing the thing. And then people think, well, the fear means I should wait. But waiting does not minimize the fear. You either decide you're never going to do the thing, and so that dissolves the fear because now it's no longer a threat, or you do it anyway, and that gets rid of the fear. But the fear in waiting doesn't dissipate. It's all just uncertainty that you're trying to get to. And the best way to cure uncertainty is to go off and do the thing. You think you need more information, but at some point, research just becomes avoidance. It's just a mechanism of procrastination, and you actually have to go off and do the thing. And then last belief that's holding you back is, what if I fail and what will people think? First of all, We don't fail truly until we stop. Think about how many failures we had along the way getting into our medical careers. I failed. I didn't fail my MCAT, but like I didn't do as high as I would have loved on the first attempt. I took it again. I didn't get into a US medical school, not a single one. They took my money though for applications. I got into Caribbean medical schools and I went. All of these were signs of resistance. All of these could have been counted as failures, but I kept going. And what happened? I ended up being successful. My favorite example of failure into success is WD-40. Y'all know WD-40 from the hardware store that comes in that can and you can use it for anything. It's like you can spray it on the hinges of your door to make it less squeaky, or you could spray it on something sticky to remove the residue. Like it does a million things. Who the heck knows what's in it? You know who knows? The guy who made WD-40. And you know why it's named WD-40? Because it took 40 tries to get that recipe. 40 tries. Is that a failure? No, that's a success. Because guess what? I bet you he's like a bajillionaire selling them little cans of WD-40. I bet you. So, what if you fail? That means you need to reroute, you need to evaluate, and you need to go again. And what will people think? I mean, I guess it depends on the people, because anyone who loves you will support you and they're not judging you for your failure. I think we worry about people who either are not in our lives, they're like an abstract person in the back of your mind that you think is going to judge you. And guess what? They don't exist in your brain, just you exist in your brain. That's your amygdala. But we have a person that we picture, that we put a face on, that's like, oh, they're going to think I'm this. And we mind read and we act like we know what these people are going to think, what they're going to say. And that creates a terrible feeling in us where we feel really awful. And that makes us not want to do the thing. Or think that someone's going to judge us or love us less because we haven't been able to do the thing. We have a lot of thoughts when it comes down to what people think. I have been reading Let Them by Mel Robbins. It's one of her newest books. I don't know if you guys know Mel Robbins. She is a life coach, motivational speaker, author, whiz, and she has great books on just shifting your mindset. Really a lot of like good mindset work. She has a podcast. She has an Instagram. She's got all of these books. And her latest book is called Let Them. And it's like someone's going to think bad things about me and we're going to let them. And so this is very much a let them moment, that like you're worried about failing and never accomplishing the thing. So you stop doing it, which means you never accomplish the thing. And guess what? It doesn't matter what anybody thinks about that because you never did it. You never even tried. Or you tried and you just gave up. It's all about uncertainty. It always comes down to safety with your amygdala. And so you don't want to feel ostracized. And I'm not even going to pretend like we shouldn't care what people think. We shouldn't, but we do. And there are certain people in our lives who we really care what they think. And I think it's a matter of managing it. It's not pretending that we don't care. I think it's more important to say like, oh, sometimes I care, but I can't let it hold me back. Or I care, but I also recognize this can't be the thing that stops me from doing what I need to do. So all of this is about awareness and recognizing that you are letting fear run your life. We all do. I do it. And so how do you shift away from that? How do we shift away from that? Let's get into the actual nitty gritty. One, I think we need to acknowledge that fear is not proof that you should stop. It's proof that I care. I care about the results. I am worried, right? I'm worried about maybe the people involved or the impact or something. There is some concern that I'm deeply worried about, but fear is not the proof that I should stop doing that thing. And then the second thing is I do not have to eliminate fear to move forward. Again, I can bring you right back to the medical school example where we were scared. There were so many nights I was scared in residency, but I moved forward. Think about every time there was a code or some crazy scenario, I was always scared because you don't want someone to die. And this is literally life or death fear. If we could deal with that kind of gripping fear, unstoppable. I think if you're a parent, I'm sure I'll be watching y'all with y'all kids. Them kids are scary little somethings. Like they literally are trying to die every second of the day. But y'all still have them. And y'all still move forward because fear cannot be the thing that determines your entire existence. Okay, so now that we have those two beliefs, like fear is not proof that I should stop and I don't have to eliminate fear to move forward, I want you to take some steps, right? One, I would say, what are you over researching instead of doing? And then I want you to take the first tiny step, right? Like if something's like, oh my God, I want to quit my job, but that just feels so big, take a little step, update your resume, child, dust them things off, get a new CV, maybe start a little inquiry with a company, just an inquiry, just to ask. I think you should say what it is you are afraid of out loud. You know that naming something can either give power or take away power, right? If you acknowledge that this is what's happening, it's like, oh, this is all that's happening. I'm just scared. Now, fear is a real emotion that will stop you dead in your tracks. But sometimes it is like, oh, this is just me being nervous. This is me being worried. Okay, I can handle that. I know what to do when I feel worried. I know how to take care of myself when I feel worried. I would also say, while you're like, the only version of the research phase I want to see you in is proving to your brain that what you want is a possibility and not using the research against yourself. So I would say follow the people, if you're on social media, follow the people that are doing what you want to do. I need you to like normalize it. Normalize asking for what you want. I would say change your inputs. I mentioned a book, check out books, podcasts, social media, get in conversations where this becomes your new norm. Seeing others succeed in the thing that you want also makes your goal feel real. That's what happened in medical school. It was like we were all on the same trajectory at the same time. And it was like, if all these people can do it, so can I, because I know I'm not the dumbest one in here. I've seen some people, and if they can make it, I can make it. Sometimes you need the motivation of other people. Sometimes you need people around you to encourage you into action. I would say make sure that your support system is up to par. Like you need someone to hold you accountable, which is why we want you to say it out loud and naming things. Use a coach, use a community, use a partner, somebody to hold you accountable. My coach definitely holds my feet to the fire, and so do my clients, right? Like I need to be a certain thing. I want to present well. I cannot let fear hold me back, or else I am not of service to anyone else. You're much more likely to do the thing if you've committed to it, especially publicly. Y'all, there are weeks that I'm afraid to get on this podcast because I'm like, I don't even know what I want to say. What if everybody hates it? What if nobody listens? If nobody listens, then there's no judgment. But what if people listen and they think it's horrible? Or they're like, she has no idea what she's talking about. All those things pop into my head, especially when I was creating the podcast the first time. But it still comes up from time to time when I'm unsure what I want to talk about, or I do mind read my audience. I mind read for y'all. I be thinking like, Lord, I think I'm crazy or something, right? I have all kinds of thoughts in my head. But also I have made a promise to show up week after week. So even when it feels scary or it feels bad or uncertain in some form or way, I know that I need to show up. I have a whole team. My virtual assistant has a person who runs my podcast. I have people who create my social media clips. They are waiting for my stuff to be done. Let me tell you, I'll be pushing the deadline because sometimes it's fear. I'm like, I don't know what to say that's going to sound amazing. I want every episode to be like inspiring and succinct and effective. We all have fears, but having an accountability system will keep you on it, even when you feel like, oh, I could just disappear. I could just not do the thing. And then I would say put a deadline on it. So research is helpful to an extent, but only action gets results. The only way to even minimize the fear is to take action. The only way to get what you want is to take action. The only way to execute your goals, all of the things that you want, is on the other side of some action, and you cannot let fear be the thing that stops you from taking that step. So identify your pattern, take a tiny first step. You don't have to rip out the rug from underneath yourself. You can just take a tiny first step, update that resume, or start reaching out to recruiters if you're looking for a new job or something. Like, actually take something that's going to give you some return. Say it out loud, what you want, share it with somebody, have an accountability partner, find the people around you who are doing the thing so that you can see it and give yourself evidence that it is true and it is possible for you, and put a deadline on it. Because we ain't got all day, baby. 2025 is going to be over in a lickety split. We're already in March. First quarter about to be done. So that's how the year goes. And then you're going to be sitting here on December 31st, like I am, like, where did the year go? How did another year fly by? Oh my goodness, I need to get it together. And then we do that thing where we ramp up for the new year with all these promises of things that we want to do, but with no actionable steps on how to do it. So if this is you, if you feel like fear is crushing me, or I want to know how to do the thing, I would invite you to join my program. It is full of doctors who are beating back the fear, who are looking fear in the face and doing it anyway. I know a doctor who, she basically said, a couple of weeks ago, that she doesn't stand up for anything, right? Like, she'll just stay in a place longer than she should just because it's uncomfortable to try to step out. I know a lot of doctors who have that out of the frying pan into the fire mindset, that if they give up something, that it will create, that they'll leap into something even worse. But then she decided to sign up for this program. And I'm like, so that just means within you, there is that gumption that you can have a different result. You don't have to do things alone, and you can do things that you're afraid of. All you need is the steps. So now she's been able to negotiate. Someone who let someone cut her in the line the other week and didn't say nothing because she was like, oh, that's crazy. And sometimes it's the shock of those things happening, of course, right? This is not a judgment of her. But sometimes people do things to you and you're so surprised that you don't even have time to react to it and you don't say anything. And then later you're thinking about all the ways you should have said the thing or reacted that you didn't, and you're disappointed. And you use that as evidence. I think that's the thing. She's using that as evidence as to she's not the kind of person that gets what she wants, except that she is, because she joined the program. And now we are following the steps. If I can help her, who feels that way about herself, her own internal belief is against her, right? If I can help her negotiate for more, she was like, she loves to go to church every Sunday. She refused to have Sundays in her contract. She is negotiating like a boss. If that is you, if you're like, I have never stood up for myself and it's time, I really want to, I just don't want to get taken advantage of, and I need an actionable step to get through this fearful moment, the way medical school guided you through, even though you were afraid, the way residency guided you through, even though you were afraid, we can do that too in the NAD Negotiator program. So I say, reach out, send me a DM, send me a message and say, I am ready. I'm ready. Fear is not going to hold me back. I look forward to hearing from you. Have a good week. Bye. Thank you so much for listening. Please subscribe to the podcast. And what I want you to do next is link us everywhere you can. Instagram at theblkdoctor. Just become part of our collective. I want you here. Thanks. Until next time. Bye.